You're listening to Keeping It 100 with Mel and Bruce, sponsored by the 100 Black Men of Las Vegas. What they see is what they'll be. I'm Mel Tillar, your host. I'm thrilled to be with you today. We're talking with a young man who wants to be a judge. He is running for judge for Justice Court, North Las Vegas, District 2. His name is Jonathan Cooper. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thank you. Very, very excited to have me here. I'm looking forward to this interview.
All right. Tell us about Justice Court. Tell us about District 2. Exactly what is it? And if you are fortunate enough to become Judge Jonathan Cooper, what exactly will you be doing?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So the primary focus of Justice Court is to deal with all criminal matters. So all criminal matters that start as either a felony or certain misdemeanors start in Justice Court. You have your preliminary hearing in Justice Court, your initial arraignment in Justice Court. The Justice Court judge is who initially decides if you're going to be released on your own recognizance, or if you're going to be released on a bail, or if you're going to be held no bail. So regarding the criminal aspect, it's an extremely important position, and that's where all crimes or all criminal charges start. Um, but that's not all we do. So in Justice Court, you're also going to be dealing with the evictions. So dealing with individuals that may not be able to afford their house payment or afford their rent anymore, and how that process is going to play out regarding them and their landlord. I also would deal with small claims matters, so matters in controversy of less than $10,000. So that can be a car accident, that can be just a small claims matter because someone took property of yours or damaged some property. And then I would also deal with protection orders. So that would be neighbors or friends that are being stalked or being harassed. I would deal with those type of protection orders as well.
This sounds like an extremely important position. Talk to me a little bit about your background and why we would vote for you, why we would feel comfortable with you in that position.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. I'm from Las Vegas. I'm a Las Vegas native, born and raised.
Nobody
I
is
grad-
from Las Vegas. What do you mean you're from Las Vegas?
yeah. So when we moved here, I was still in my mom's stomach. So I was born here, born in Vegas.
Okay.
Went to Walter Long Elementary School. Went to J.C. Fremont Middle. Graduated from El Dorado High School. After graduation, I joined the United States Army. I went down to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and that's actually where I decided to go to college. So I went to the University of Missouri, ultimately graduating with my JD in 2010. After graduating from law school, I came back to Las Vegas, and I was fortunate enough to become a prosecutor at the Clark County District Attorney's Office. That office taught me how to be a prosecutor, how to put on a case, and how to be a great attorney. After being there for about 7 years, I decided to switch over in order to continue my development, not only as an attorney but as a person. And I became a defense attorney, and I did criminal defense for 4 years. And then in 2022, I was lucky enough to be appointed to the hearing master position in family court. So right now, what I do is I do domestic violence protection orders. So as a hearing master, a lot of people don't really know what that term means. It's essentially a judge, but only I have limited cases. So the only type of case I deal with is protection order cases. But I do all the same duties that a elected judge would do. I'm the one that makes the decisions on the case. I hear the evidence. I sit on the bench in the black robe. I do all the same stuff. It's just a little bit different from actually being elected as a judge. So I have the background. I have the educational background. I have the experience. The military taught me the importance of service. And not only that, I serve my community on a day-to-day basis. I'm on several community boards, as well as I volunteer for the truancy diversion program at El Dorado High School, my alma mater, keeping children in school. Obviously, making sure they understand the importance of graduating from high school. And I do that every Friday morning at 7:30 a.m. I'm at El Dorado talking to kids and trying to get them to stay in school.
Okay. I want you to give me a yes or no to the next question. The American justice system is biased against Black and brown people.
That's hard to give a yes or no to. I would say sometimes, yes.
Okay.
sometimes. And
Okay, so most of the people in most of the people in our community believe that American justice system is biased against Black and Brown people. When we look at the data says that. Why do you say sometimes?
yeah. I say sometimes because I have seen a lot of development moving forward recently. And I'm talking about Las Vegas. I can't talk about nationally,
When
but
you say
from
recently, um, what is that? What is recent? Give me a timeline.
uh,
Is that years, months,
recently,
what?
I would say in the last 4 years or so. So in the last 4 years, specifically in the 2020 election, we elected, I believe it was 5 different African American judges in the 2020 election alone. In the last election in 2022, we also elected another Black male judge. He's the first Black male judge in North Las Vegas. His name is Courtney Ketter. So seeing that type of development, I think that type of development is pushing the criminal justice system in the right way. Now, is there a lot of work to do? Absolutely. I think that cannot be understated. But I think the fact that we are now starting to see African Americans being put in positions where they're the ones that are making the decisions on these cases, we are starting to see better results for everyone, not just for Black people, not just for Brown people, but for everyone, because they have a broader base of understanding for the entire community.
Okay, all right. So you've named one individual. Give me an example of, of an individual whom you believe has made the biggest difference locally
Yeah.
in the justice
So I would have to
system locally.
in the justice system. Hmm, that's a good question. So I would probably have to go back even farther. I would probably say Judge Gates. Now he was a Black male judge. This was in the 90s into the early 2000s. He was a Black male judge in Las Vegas. He was one of the first. He was not the first, but he was one of the first. And on my own personal life, he made a huge impact just because he was the idea of a Black man could be a judge in Las Vegas. So I think he also was very impactful on a lot of other Black attorneys here in Las Vegas as well, because growing up, he was the Black judge. So I think he made a huge impact. But if we want to go recently, right now, I think Belinda T. Harris is making a great impact in North Las Vegas. She was the first Black judge in North Las Vegas, period, male or female. She's been on the bench since 2020, and she's been doing great work in North Las Vegas, ensuring that obviously racial equality is something extremely important to her, ensuring that North Las Vegas Justice Court is moving in the right direction, and also engaging the community a lot. Even though she's not running for election, it's funny. You see a lot of judges out and about when it's election season. She's out and about every day. And that's the kind of judge I want to be. I want to be in the community every single day. I want people to know who I am. I want people to know, hey, you can come talk to me. I'm just the average guy that you see at the corner store wearing my slippers. So I yeah, I think she's been doing a lot of good work recently.
Okay, so you talk about being out in the community. When you're out in the community, what are some of the major issues that you see are facing our community?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the bigger issues I've seen is and I think this is not only our community but also facing the Hispanic community as well as the Caucasian community is housing affordability. Unfortunately, that's not really something a judge can deal with in the broader sense. Now, when we talk about the eviction process, that is something a judge deals with. And like I said, I would be doing evictions. So the understanding of that aspect of it, I think is extremely critical where if someone cannot afford to stay in their house and the landlord wants to remove them, the landlord has a right to remove them as long as they follow the correct procedures. Where the judge can step in and make it a little more equitable is finding some way to allow the person to leave the property without giving an eviction on their record. Because a lot of people don't know if you have an eviction on your record, trying to get an apartment in the future is almost impossible. So then we just get into a systematic issue of individuals they can't afford one apartment, they get an eviction on their record. Now they're never going to get another apartment, or they're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops, maybe put forth a large security deposit that they may not be able to afford, and you get into a bad cycle. So I think the judge allowing them a little bit additional time to relocate without having that actual eviction on the record is critical, and I think that would help some of the issues regarding the housing affordability. Now, it's not going to help the price, but it at least would have helped them get approved for the apartment to begin with. That's a critical issue. I think criminal justice, we already hit on, is always an issue that's forefront to our community. I mean, we talked about it. The statistics show that African Americans are locked up at a exponentially higher rate than other races. And then not only that, it's interesting when I'm actually out and about in the community and I tell people what I do now. I tell people, hey, I'm a judge in family court. A lot of people look at me and they're a little shocked. They're a little taken back, and I think it's because I'm a young Black man. And when I look at the statistics, it actually 1/3 of young Black men are in some form of the criminal justice system, whether that be they received a conviction, they're going through the process where they just were charged with a crime, they're on probation, something of that nature. 1/3 of us are in that type of situation. So I think to myself, I say, well, if I would have said I'm just fresh out of jail, would they bat an eye at that point? Would they say, hey, oh no, oh, we believe you? But when I tell people I'm a young Black judge, they kind of look back and they're like, really, you're a judge? And I think that is an issue that plagues our community because we don't have enough young African American man, or just African American man in general, in those type of positions, so we can set that type of example for the next generation. Because I do want to break that idea of young Black man, or Black man in general are not judges, or not lawyers, or not doctors. We need to break that stereotype.
I love that you're there. You are running. You have the position. You have the position now. What other kinds of things are you doing in our community to change the narrative and to help some of our young Black men along?
Absolutely. So I did talk about the at El Dorado doing the truancy diversion program, because it starts with education. If my wife's a teacher and she's instilled in me the importance of education. She teaches at elementary school, and just to see the importance of the work she does and how passionate she is about it sparked a new interest in me to be passionate about education as well. So like I go to El Dorado High School every Friday morning, 7:30 in the morning, and it's early, but I'm there with the kids, and we're working through the issues that are not allowing them to go to school. So the children I deal with are the ones that have a high amount of absences. And we are going through whatever issue it is, whether it be transportation, whether it be issues at home, being bullied at school. We're going through all those issues to ensure that they can graduate. Because if you don't graduate from high school, your options are severely limited moving forward. And unfortunately, a lot of children, because they are children, they may be 17, but they're still children, do not understand the importance of graduating from high school. So I'm definitely doing that with the community. Before I was appointed to the hearing master position, I sat on the citizen review board for Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. So essentially, what that board did was, it was a independent agency that reviewed complaints against Metro. So Metro has their internal affairs agency, and they deal with internal complaints, things of that nature. People can also report to internal affairs, but there's also a secondary board that a lot of people don't know about, and it's called the Citizen Review Board. They can report directly to the Citizen Review Board, and it's just a panel of citizens. And we look at the complaints, and we ultimately have the power to hold investigations, have the power to call on the officers and ask them what really happened. We went through that process, and I was on that board for 3 years, I believe. And that was a great experience. It's just I can't sit on that board and also sit on the bench, so I had to resign that post. But that was also another thing to be intimately involved in the community, so people understand that there is someone that wants to hold law enforcement accountable. There is someone that wants to hold our education system accountable. And when I'm on the bench, I'm going to do all the same stuff, and I'm also going to hold the attorneys in court accountable.
You sit in a rather interesting position because you're able to see what's going on locally. As a judge, you're able to kind of look out broadly and see what's happening nationally. We're all looking at the Supreme Court. Some of us are scratching our heads at that. If you had an opportunity to speak to the Biden administration, Kamala and Joe, what would you say to them about the experience of being a Black man and what you believe this administration could do better to help our situation?
Yeah. Um, that's a very good question. So I think I probably would tell them about and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but obviously the housing affordability situation that we have currently, I think that is disproportionately affecting the African American community from what I've seen. I also think it's extremely important to talk to them about what we see on a day-to-day basis regarding like what happens in court on a day-to-day basis, whether that be bail reform, whether that be other issues involving the crimes that people are being charged with. Like for example, you'll see a Black man and he's charged with attempt murder, but a white man is charged based on the same facts. He's only charged with battery with substantial bodily harm. So it's very interesting, and I don't want to sit here and say that I think the district attorney's office is purposely doing this wrong or anything like that. I'm not going to say that. I worked there for 7 years, and everyone I interacted with was always trying to do the best they can.
Okay,
And
so wait, okay, I got to stop you. You, I hear you, and you are involved in the system, so I understand that is the politically correct answer to give. But for those of us who are on the outside, we hear, okay, they're doing the best they can. These are really good people and those kinds of things. The data doesn't say that. The data says that the system is biased against Black and brown people. So, how do we take care of this and how do we handle this bias from these people who are good people doing the best they can? How do we change that and get that to be more fair? Because I think that is the problem that we have in our community. We see, just as you said, a Black man does one thing and he gets the book thrown at him. A white man does something else and he is treated far more leniently. And the data says exactly that. And the only difference between the two is that one is Black, one is white. And then we hear, oh, well, they're good people and they're doing the best they can. That doesn't help us.
yeah, I agree. I agree. So I don't, again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying there's no issues with the criminal justice system. There absolutely is. I think one of the biggest ways we can fix those type of issues is getting more African Americans in the district attorney's office, getting more African Americans as defense attorneys. Because I think the problem is, and I'm going to be 100% honest, the problem is that these people, or for example, a lot of prosecutors that I know are young white men or young white women that don't understand what it is to be Black in America. So I'm not going to sit here and say they're racist. I'm not going to sit here and say that they don't care in that aspect. But the concern is that if they don't have those experiences and they don't have anyone around them that has those experiences, it's hard for them to understand how their acting is negatively impacting the African American community. I think it's more of a naivety than it is a I'm purposely trying to be harmful to Black people. And that's what I've seen. And again, I could have a very skewed view of it because I was in that office for 7 years. And obviously, people are going to interact with me different as a colleague than they may interact with me just if they saw me on the street. So I understand that aspect of it may not be the average person's view. But from what I've seen, I do absolutely believe that it's more of being naive to what's really going on and not understanding our community more than actively trying to harm our community. And I think the way we do that is we get more people in those positions. And one thing I will say is that I know everyone's going to have their own difference of opinion regarding the district attorney's office, and I know that, but I have seen that under this administration, Mr. Wolfson has made a lot of strides to make sure that he was hiring um, qualified individuals of color. So there is more diversity. And when there is more diversity, then you have a better representation of the community and you can represent the community better.
I will say, in some ways, you're being kind, but I appreciate that that point of view. Let's talk a little bit about this. Let's talk a little bit about the Supreme Court. We see a Supreme Court. Scott Women has someone who's black on it. Got a lot of conservatives on it. We see affirmative action being overturned. We see voting rights being gutted. We see Roe versus Wade being overturned. Precedence doesn't seem to matter to these group of people, and they continue to come down with decision after decision after decision that many of us believe is those decisions are extremely harmful to Black and brown people, and that those decisions are going to be harmful to Black and brown people for generations to come. Talk to me, as a judge, as a Black judge, how do you, and as a politically correct Black judge, I might say, and I understand too, because I was an officer in the Marine Corps, and so I get it. So how do you look at what this Supreme Court is doing? What I would look at and say, the activism of this Supreme Court. How do you look at this and interpret it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely do disagree with the decisions that they've been making recently. Talking specifically about Roe v. Wade, which was probably one of the bigger ones. Not to say it's the more important, but just got more media coverage. I think the problem that I've seen is that as a judge, you can interpret the facts any way you want to interpret them, and you can make your decision make sense in your own head and honestly make sense to people. If you are able to rationalize what you're putting on in your order, no one can really question you about it because you're the judge and you're the one that is making your decision based on your views, your ideas. And I think what they're doing now, while I disagree with it, does show the importance of judges in our community. And what I mean by that is, obviously, if we would have had different judges in those positions, those decisions would not have worked out the way they did regarding Roe v. Wade and regarding the voting rights and regarding affirmative action. None of those decisions would have played out the same way. So I think it's important for voters to understand how important judges are and how important or voting for a judge is. And obviously, the Supreme Court is appointed, but the president is the one that appoints them. So getting out and making sure you vote, because the Supreme Court, as I'm sure most people know, it's a lifetime appointment, just like other federal benches. The Court of Appeals, the district courts, and the federal side are all lifetime appointments. And the issue is that there's other stuff going on in the district courts right now that people aren't seeing because it's not getting the same type of news coverage. And I think it underscores the importance of judges in general. Like, for example, I'm getting a little off topic, but there was a recent appellate court decision where individuals that were under a domestic violence protection order can no longer have their guns taken away. And I think that's extremely scary. To be that a judge found that you were such a danger to your ex or your significant other that they issued an extended protection order for 1 year, 2 years, or in some states it can be significantly higher than that, and you still have guns, and that's obviously to me extremely dangerous. But those judges, and this was a southern circuit, I think Texas and a couple other southern states, those judges are making those type of decisions, and the average person doesn't know about it. So I think it starts with us as a community to make sure that we make our voices heard in the ballot box and ensure that these judges are being held accountable.
Jonathan, you've given us a lot to think about. You've given us some great information, and you've been very generous with your time. What would you like to leave our listening audience with?
Absolutely. And I hit on a little bit, but I think the importance of judges in traditional society, the only elected person you probably are going to deal with on a regular basis is a judge. And that be whether it be traffic tickets, whether it be a criminal offense, whether it be a small claims matter, eviction. Um, the vast majority of people are not really going to interact with the mayor, even though the mayor is an extremely important position. Vast majority of people are not going to interact with the governor, and probably only what 0.001% of the world's going to interact with the president. So it's the local judges that are the ones that are making the extremely big impacts in your life. And like we talked about with the Supreme Court, obviously I'm not making those type of decisions, but I am going to be making extremely important decisions on each individual person's case. So having qualified individuals, having people that understand the community, having people that actually care about the community in those positions is extremely important. And I encourage everyone to get out, to vote and make your voice heard, so we can ensure that our democracy continues for another 200 years.
You've been listening to Jonathan Cooper. He wants to be a justice court judge in North Las Vegas, District 2. Jonathan, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
You've been listening to Keeping It 100 with Mel and Bruce, featuring Larry Carroll, sponsored by the 100 Black Men of Las Vegas. What they see is what they'll be. I'm Mel Tillar, your host, and until next time, keep it 100.